Welcome to the Jonnydels Football Academy podcast on the channel that's trying to answer the whys and hows of the game by talking through and dissecting game film and diving deeper to explain why the X's zig and the O's zag. I am Adam Marino, joined by Mr. Jonnydels, and we are reminding you, as always, the most fun way to watch is on YouTube, where we go live. There you can comment into the live show. Be sure to hit the notification bell and turn on your notifications so you can be a part of the conversation. We also stream live on Facebook and X. Also, the audio versions are always found on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Now, if you are live with us in the chat, it's probably because you are subscribed, you've hit the notification bell, and turned those notifications on. So, when sharing with your friends, be sure to let them know. We also love to hear from you outside of our live show. Email us at jonnydelsfootballacademy@gmail.com, and you can always check out the website jfa49.com, as it is the most fun way to support the channel. Also, the way we boost the chat and boost the algorithm is to type out hashtag JD49. Oh, yes. Hashtag JD49. Thanks to all of those that are boosting the algorithm as Misery Loves Company. It is I, Adam Marino, joined by Mr. Jonnydels. We're going to go through the hows and whys and the sobs and the cries.
Hey, Adam, do you see the chat on your end? Mine is just a spinning, loading thing of the chat. So I can see it over here on the YouTube side, but I can't select anybody. Thank you for juicing the algo, everybody in the chat. I can see you on the YouTube side, but I cannot see you in the restream side. This is just par for the course for the 49ers and 49ers stuff right now, right?
So I'm taking a look, and yeah, I cannot see anything on our restream, but on the YouTube is where I'm looking up
I see it all
everyone
there.
and seeing
I
everybody.
am all with Jim Cushman. Hashtag, look, I'm not somebody to call for people being fired really ever. But I also have standards. I have standards, people.
At least a stern email. So I love that I have this effect on some of the faithful, because help me, Johnny, because you've said this name before and I don't feel like I'm gonna say it right. Calador definitely is
Where you're looking, because I have to scroll through the other chat
all the way to the top, all the way to the top, all the way to the top.
Calator.
Okay, Calator. I am with Calator, obviously. And look, this time of possession thing, you know how sometimes people, like, if they're in traffic, sometimes maybe they can have a nervous tick, or they just have something. I don't know if I'm on the spectrum. Like, I don't know, but
know that.
when
We can answer that one.
but when the time of possession is that insanely off, I start like going, I start moving, my hands start like, I don't know what to do with my hands. I get weird. I flip out when it is that bad, and it just was very, very, very bad. And that tells you all you need to know, because it was downhill from there. We did still somehow manage to get a super chat.
Cayman's Island podcast.
Always
We
checking
appreciate
in.
you. Always
Yeah.
check out his podcast. You can click on his icon there, go to his YouTube page, become a subscriber, like the channel. He takes it live with his thoughts and
So he's still on the pass
ruminations
rusher. He's still on the pass rusher.
on the 49ers. And yes, do you think the 49ers brass will punt on adding a pass rusher, since it looks like it will not be enough at this point? Two players may not be enough to make a difference with all our injuries. That is a great question. I think at this point, you don't give up anything higher than a 4th or a 5th round pick. And they're wanting somebody who will also not only be a 4th or 5th round pick, but also bring assets for next season. That becomes very few and far between. We can look at, like, as an example, Um, you don't want to just throw away a 5th round pick. Marquise Siegel was a 5th round pick, and he was very crucial in us starting out the season the way we did. Now he's kind of fallen out of favor. Jair Brown has more supplanted him in there. Of course, I don't know exactly, where at this point what Jair Brown brings over Marquise Siegel, who I think has more upside going forward. Um, so I mean, but anyways, 5th round picks have been good for us. I believe D Winters was a 5th round pick. Dre Greenlaw was a 5th round pick. Tatum Bethune was a 7th round pick. These guys are playing some very consequential snaps right now. So it can be easy to say, well, it's just a 5th round pick. The 49ers, the 5th and 6th round is where they've lived, and they've made their mark. 3rd rounds where they've been burning picks. So, but they're not going to view it that way. So I think at this point, they're going to look at it and say, eh, you know, eh, unless we start having some sort of miraculous turnaround on this injury rate, which there's no evidence that it will be. I think all of us go into the game wondering who's going to not finish the game, because you can't lose starters at the rate that they have been losing starters. You just can't.
Just watching the game like this with your fingers crossed, you're like, all right.
At this point, luck is not involved. And I don't want to be punting the season away in October. Of course, we do this every year in October. We do. Let's be honest. Every October we go through this. The 49ers are historically bad in October. I've talked about it for years. We've talked about it on this channel that the 49ers win every year around October. It is completely doom and gloom. And I talked about it with I think it was on the air, or was at the after we went off the air with Houston Stressens before the game. He was upset they were 2-4. I said, look, if you go back to 2021, the Houston Texans right now remind me of that 49ers team in 2021. They have an incredible defense, an incredibly talented defense. They have a lot of talent on offense, but they're underperforming by a mile. And they're an incredibly dangerous team that, for whatever reason, is 2-4. And that was the 49ers in 2021. And remember that after that monsoon game in against Indianapolis, it was like everybody was saying we needed to completely clear house of the entire organization. And then we ended up in the NFC Championship game that year. So that's what this Houston team reminds me of. But that is the history of the 49ers. If you remember, even the Super Bowl run, we went 0-3 or in a 3-week stretch in October. Last year, we got the crap kicked out of us by Kansas City in October. If you remember back to when Brock Purdy's first play time happened against the Chiefs, that was in a game where D'Amico Ryans' defense gave up 6 straight touchdown drives to the Kansas City Chiefs that year, and the 49ers ended up in the NFC Championship game. And only didn't make it because of Brock Purdy's torn UCL. So, I'm trying to talk myself off the ledge for that. This is par for the course for October. So the long way around to answer that, it's a maybe, but it has to be cheap. They're not going to give up valuable assets right now when you know you don't have Nick Bosa the rest of the season. You don't have Fred Warner the rest of the season. That's just the reality, and you don't know the exact timeline on when Brock comes back. They're saying Brock is getting close. Brock is getting close. That reminds me of my wife's 3rd pregnancy. My previous 2 daughters had come early. My first child came over 6 weeks early. My second came 4 weeks early. My son, who was her 3rd pregnancy, when we got to 36 weeks, it was like, well, it could be any day. We're getting close. We're getting close. We're getting close. She had to get induced a day before her delivery date because it never came about. And that's what we feel like is happening with Brock here, is that, we're getting close. We're getting close. And then we hear Diana Rossini come out and say, that that Brock had a workout before the Falcons game and it didn't go well. And I'm sitting here like, why are we working? Like, why are we not making sure that we're sure that Brock is good to go for the rest of the year instead of, well, now he's going to miss another 3 games. Um, I don't know, but anyways, when you're sitting there with that, I just don't see, they're not going to pull the trigger on a big pass rusher unless you get a guy that's going to be here that's under contract for 4 years that is also in that 25 to 26 range. But I don't think the draft compensation works out. I just don't. So it's just 3 weeks ago, I think the 49ers would have been very bullish. Come now, had they at least been a team that was staying remotely healthy and being very, and still, even if you were 5-3, if you were remotely healthy around this time, you would say, okay, we're gonna try and make a move to push us into a next tier of team. Right now, it's kind of like, well, if you trade for a guy and then you lose the other half of your starting defense the rest of the season, what was the point? I don't know. It's hard to have confidence in projecting anything out more than 2 weeks right now with the 49ers.
Yeah, I it's interesting that the chat even is starting to, a few weeks ago I kind of got hammered, which I was starting to say like, okay, I get it. And now people are more coming in my direction when I was saying like, look, this isn't th- there's only so much you can do. This isn't our year. Let's make sure, that we're set up for next year. And it's like now you get comments from Rick James Franco that says they were never a player away. They weren't 5 players away. This loss is a good thing for the future. And it's like I said stuff like that weeks ago when I knew this would happen, Nostradamusly. And I'm just saying, hate to say I told you so. I do hate it because what that means is
Mm-mm.
no, what it means, this
No,
is why
you
I hate it.
don't.
No,
You
this is
love to
why.
say I
No,
told you
but
so.
let me explain why I hate it. Because what it means is that we truly are losing. Look, at the end of the day, I'd rather win. I'd rather. And so coming in with a super chat also now, he says, this really comes down to if you want to pretend to be a Cowboys fan, if you get all excited at the chance at a one and done in the playoffs, then I guess there's still hope. Yeah, and what I'm saying is I don't want that. I want a Super Bowl. So, since I
Right.
know that
Well,
it's
look,
not
look.
on the table, we already have guys that have been to the playoffs. Big deal. Big deal that we go to the playoffs. Our roster has been to the playoffs. That's not it'd be one thing if we were the Colts because the Colts have not been in so long. Daniel Jones hasn't tasted it. I would absolutely say, "Hey, let's just make the playoffs." When the Warriors were up and coming trying to beat the Spurs, they needed to go hashtag through it. They need to go through it. The 49ers have been through it. We don't need to go through it. We just need to kick the door down. And if the door will not be kicked down, then let's gather assets, let's get healthy, and let's punt. I don't see what's so terrible about me saying that.
Because it's saying because it's almost like you start actively rooting for your team to lose.
No,
No,
I
no, no,
want
no. But
them.
I understand. But when you say the term like "let's punt the
Oh, okay.
season," you're
Yeah.
saying let's just lose as much as we can, tank, and get the best assets we can. No, no, that is misery. Like you want the team to be competing, and the deal is, I don't think anybody who's saying don't punt the season away is saying um I think if we look at right now a matchup against the rest of the league, the 49ers are a Super Bowl winning team. It's the issue of come January, you don't know what the state of the league is going to be for one and two when because of we're not talking about an NBA 7-game series where you look at this and say over 7 games this
Right.
team could never beat these teams.
It's
It's
just
kind of
one.
like even the Portland Trailblazers many years ago when uh the Warriors were as good as they were. They took the Warriors down to the wire in almost every game, but they still lost what like 4-1 in the series, 4-2 in the series, something like that. where, they could take any single game. If you just looked at any one game, the Blazers could beat the Warriors, but over a 7-game series, it was never realistic. It was kind of like the 92-93 NBA finals. It was the Blazers versus the Bulls. Nobody looked at that Blazers team and that Bulls team and said that the Blazers had a realistic shot at winning a 7-game series, but one game, anything could happen, and it might be that way. When you look at the nature of NFL playoffs, one game is what you need. So, yes, you can say, well, we're not a Super Bowl winning team. Well, nobody believed that the Commanders were going to be in the NFC Championship game and getting right on the door of making it to the Super Bowl. But things happen near the end of the year, and everybody thought the Lions were going to roll them in the playoffs because they were a young team. They had injuries. They didn't have enough juice, is what people said. Well, the Lions ran out of NFL bodies by the end of the year, and the Lions got bounced. And nobody believed that the Rams were going to bounce the 14-3 Minnesota Vikings as bad as they did. And yet you get into the playoffs, it's not necessarily about if these two teams matched up over seven times. Obviously the 49ers don't have a chance, but you got one game. You only need one or two interceptions or turnovers, one sack fumble, and suddenly you're moving on to the next week. And then you run the thing back again. Anything can happen. So, when it's that kind of a situation, I don't like to say, well, we're not a Super Bowl winning team. Let's, just punt and gather assets. No, you just try and make it in the dance, and then anything can happen. We all remember the 2011 NFC Championship game. A 9-7 Giants team made it into the wild card and ended up going and winning a Super Bowl. That was a team that many people were saying, many Giants fans halfway through the year were like, Tom Coughlin's got to go, punt the season, reset for next year. He's washed. He's not the guy. And they were ready to reset, and they ended up going and winning a Super Bowl. That was not a team that, if you looked at in October, thought that is a Super Bowl winning roster. Nobody thought that year. I'm not saying that it happens very often, but the idea of just throwing the possibility of it away, that I'm not okay with.
Here, and so then let's do
We
this.
have
Let's
another super chat
define.
though that we didn't get to here, Adam, from John Kimball.
Oh, I missed it.
You did.
Go ahead.
He says, it seems Shanny never tested disease with those choice routes to CMC. It wasn't clear to me what they were trying to accomplish in the O game plan. The O game plan pretty much went out the window by the third drive.
Yeah.
That was the problem, is that they were trying to Shanahan was trying to use like that question and answer session at the beginning of the game, and that went out the window real quick because your defense, I mean, we went into the second quarter that the 49ers had the ball for 1 minute and 24 seconds. You couldn't stay on the field on offense. It quickly was getting to a point that they realized the defense was not getting off the field with any sort of consistency. This was going to be a long, and you had to start putting up points, and it turned into exactly the kind of game you couldn't have. We talked about it Friday that this was a team, Houston, that was number 1 against the pass in a whole bunch of metrics, and you saw exactly that play out. The 49ers ran the ball 10 times. 10. That means that they were trying to do the majority of their offense dropping back against the number 1 passing defense, and that was a losing proposition, and that's exactly what you got. The issue was that the defense couldn't get off the field.
So I want to get back to what exactly someone means when they say punt the season, because I would submit to you that I don't think it means what maybe others would say it means. So I want to give my definition. And my definition is that we do not trade to get who was the lineman? Chase Daniels. Never mind, I got it. Like the year that we went in and
Chase
got
Daniel,
or that's the quarterback.
yeah, Chase Daniels is a former NFL quarterback. You're
Yeah,
talking
sorry.
about Chase.
What is his name? He's with the Saints now,
Yeah.
and he's terrible.
He's not terrible.
Well, he's not very good. But if he was with Washington,
Anyways,
he was a stud. He went to Ohio
my
State.
brain will flip it off in a
The
second.
chat will correct us in 8.9 seconds.
Yeah.
But when we Young, isn't it Young?
Yeah, Chase Young. That's what it was. Yep.
Didn't need you, chat. Didn't need you.
Oh, they came in. They're
They
gonna
came in.
say
They
because
came in, but
they
I
came
didn't
in
need them.
after you
I
said.
didn't need them.
For the record, I was watching the
I,
chat and
I
Adam, and where we're live, he was in it before the chat. So
yeah. So I didn't need you. But I will say that that is going for it, and that is not punting. And what I'm saying is that we wouldn't do that. However, it doesn't mean some people would say punt, and that means now we give away our players. I'm not saying that. That's A, and that's huge. B is I'm not going to be upset. I'm going to turn into a Titans fan and I'm just going to have fun with it and look for some positives if we lose. If. And I'm also
okay.
knowing
You're not talking about punting. Here's the issue. That you're trying to
what is that
redefine the
then?
term punting. What you're doing is you're resetting your expectations.
Okay, then. Thank you. That is what
You're
I'm doing. So maybe that's why people are coming after me because they think
yes.
I mean, but that's why I'm trying to explain myself
Well,
because
okay,
I
Adam,
think
we
many
are a
people are on the
football
same page.
podcast, and we're a football podcast, and you're talking about punting. When you say that, it's like, well, it's 4th and 2. We're down by 6 with 3 minutes left or a minute 20 left in the game. I'm gonna punt the ball, because that's what it sounds like.
I'm not. I'm
What you're
definitely not.
saying is no, it's more like 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. I'm down 2 scores. I'm going to punt the ball away. If we
Which is
can
what we did,
make
by
a
the
stop
way.
on
Which
I
is
know.
what we did.
If we can make a stop on defense, then I'll adjust the approach, but probably not. And we're just going to dig ourselves in a deeper hole by trying to go for it. At this point in the game where we are, I get what you're saying there. You're saying I'm going to adjust expectations. I'm not. I don't want to be let down, so I won't let myself get up high. It's like the old meme: avoid disappointment, set low expectations. So he's gonna say I'm gonna go that way. Look, punting the season or not, the 49ers got the crap kicked out of them yesterday.
Yeah.
And that was hard to watch. It was I never wanted to turn a game off as much since like last year as I did yesterday, because it was just like watching once I saw Alfred Collins go into the blue medical tent holding his arm, and I know he came back out, but it was just like you couldn't rush the passer with even who you had on the field. And then Alfred Collins is coming out, and then later in the game, Jordan Elliott, and then Sam O and D Winters. There just comes a point where you kind of throw up your hands when you have Trevis Gibson and Robert Beal as your primary pass rushers in this game. Practice squad players. Let's be real. These are practice squad caliber players. They are not NFL bodies. That's who we had rushing the passer. That then you have to blitz. And when you do that, you're going to expose yourself in different ways.
They picked it
And
up
they said,
very
yeah,
well.
we weren't covering it as well. Well, I mean, we had some free rushers, but we didn't cover it up as well on the back end. That's been a problem throughout much of the year. You have a lot of young guys who've been in and out of the lineup. We keep changing our safeties in and out. So we've been changing out the linebackers. So it does become harder to run those. I don't know if Renardo Green's going through a sophomore slump. It kind of looks like it. And we've seen that before. A 49ers corner look really sharp their rookie year, come back the next year, and suddenly they fall off the map. We saw that with Ambry Thomas.
Jair
We
Brown.
saw well, he's not a corner, but I'm talking about corners. We saw it with Ambry Thomas. We saw it with Akella Witherspoon. Both those guys, strong rookie campaigns, came back in their second year and suddenly fell off a cliff. I mean, it just is the nature of what we've seen at the corner spot. I'm hoping that's not the situation with Ronaldo. I think he's been hampered by the amount of injuries, and he just hasn't had the reps on the field in this defense. There comes a point where you look at the 49ers team and you say, we no longer have enough NFL bodies. You can't be down. You can't be down to like your fifth and sixth pass rushers, edge players, and expect to be quality. Like,
Yeah.
no wonder you can't get a pass rush when you have no edge rush.
Well, that's why I was
Like,
laughing at Mike B saying, "Wow, who knew that losing both of your wow, who'd have thunk?" Like,
and so I mean the Texans just kept converting third downs on us over and over and over again. Couldn't get off the field. You're holding them to field goals, which is great, but they're doing 16 to 17 play drives. Eventually, they did wear down. I mean, the fatigue was a factor. And then on offense, you get out there and you run and you snap the ball 6 times and you have a 3 and out. Like, make that make sense.
yeah, dude.
I mean, it was that was getting comical in the first drive of the 49ers when you had penalty, 3 penalties to start out the offensive drive, 2 on the 49ers, 1 on Houston. And then you have first and 13. And then you go technically you go 3 and out. You're not able to break any tackles. You're not able to get the ball to some of your players. You're not able to run the ball. You know, I said it last night again, and people I look, I'm going to keep talking about this because this still seems to be a confusion among 49ers fans that I've said the 49ers have not completely restructured their strength and conditioning player health departments. They haven't done it. They did it halfway in 2019, but they have not done that. Dustin Perry, who is the head of player health, vice president of player health, and has been in that spot since 2024, July of 2024. Under his regime, the 49ers have been the number 1 most injured team by a mile since July of 2024. Actually, since week 1 of 2024, not even training camp. We're not even including training camp. Before yesterday's game, when they lost 3 more starting players or guys who were in the starting lineup, the 49ers had 62 unique players on the injury reports in the last 25 games. 62. You are averaging more than 2 players getting hurt per game. This is not any sort of reasonable expectation. I know and people, because here's what happens. People push back on me and they start getting snarky, and I get snarky back because I can be that way. People go, "Oh, well, guess what? Newsflash, people got hurt playing a game where people get hurt." No, I'm not having an issue that injuries happen. I get it, injuries happen. It's the rate at which injuries happen. It's the type of injuries that happen. These are preventable. And when you have a whole lot of preventable injuries that are happening, something says that you're not preventing them correctly. The 49ers are top 3 in the league almost every year in hamstring pulls and groin pulls. Those are soft tissue preventable injuries. Somebody came at me last night. Was like, "Oh, guess what? They have 9 players who've had hamstrings this year." Oh, well, it's the number 1 most common injury in the NFL. And then they tried to cite data to me, and that there's 170 per year. And I said, "Yeah, do your own math. That equates to 5.3 hamstring injuries per team per year. The 49ers have 9 through 8 games, and there's 9 left to go. That should tell you something's wrong."
Yeah, the data just worked against you
Because what
on
happens is,
that.
so I work in textual analysis all the time, and this happens a lot with this. People will hear something that sounds somewhat reasonable, that will sound like it's a plausible explanation, and they just run with it. Nobody ever stress tests it. They don't put it through a measurement against the data and the information that's there, people just run with it. And that is what's happened with the 49ers player health department. When you say, what are the cause of all these injuries? Because everybody understands we have more injuries than everybody else. They showed that graphic yesterday, and that was a very sobering moment for a lot
Since
of fans.
2017 or something,
Since
right?
2017, that the 49ers have had 2,036 missed games due to injury. That is the most in the NFL during that stretch. And so I will walk us through this, because here's what I always get thrown back at me, and these ideas that people throw out and say, well, this is why. They say, well, because the 49ers have played more games, and these deep playoff runs have a cumulative effect, that they played more games only. And I have seen this. Only the 49ers and Chiefs have had an entire season's worth of games extra played since 2019 to now, and that wear and tear builds up. Then I say, but then you have to not just take it that's an okay data set, but it's not really accurate. And here's why: because it doesn't account for roster turnover. Because for it to be a true cumulative effect, then all rosters have to stay the same, have to be stagnant over that period, and to see these injury rates. You have to have no movement among players, or else there's not a true cumulative effect. Because if for example, the 49ers bring on a free agent who in 2023 that had been with a team that had not made it to the playoffs in their previous year career, then that cumulative long season effect doesn't actually take place on them. A good example of this is Christian McCaffrey. We traded for him in 2022. Up until that point in his season, or in his career, he'd only played in one playoff game. So the 2019 and 2021 long playoff runs doesn't factor into his cumulative injury effect. Since 2019, the 49ers only have 4 players from that Super Bowl team that have been with the team the entire time. That's George Kittle, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, and Kyle Juszczyk. Those are the only 4 players that have been with the team from the end of the Super Bowl to now. So if you're talking about a cumulative effect, then with the amount of roster turnover that the 49ers have had, and even 2 years ago, it was only 7. So we've had an incredible amount of roster turnover. Our roster now is very different. We've changed over something like 30-some players from our roster in 2023. This cumulative effect, then when we put that to the analysis, it doesn't hold up. Other things people will say, well, the 49ers play a really physical style. Okay, well, then you would expect a higher than average contact injury rate, right? Because if it's about being really physical and pounding and banging and those high contact things, and they play really fast and aggressive on defense, so there's all these aggressive things, then you would expect a higher than average contact injury rate. The 49ers have a lower than average contact injury rate. The injuries of like what happened to Fred Warner are lower than average. The injuries of like concussions, thigh contusions, those are lower than other teams. So we have it at a lower rate. So if you can't say it's because we're a physical team, people say, well, it's because they run really, really hard practices. Actually, according to a number of player reviews, the teams like the Eagles and the Chiefs run actually harder practices than the 49ers.
Yeah.
Andy Reid runs, as many players under him have said, he runs the hardest training camp in the NFL, and they have been a top 10 positively healthy team in his tenure. It's not because of really physical hard practices. These data metrics don't hold up against the actual data. People say, well, okay, it's because they bring in, when you bring in a lot of injury-prone players, guess what? You have a lot of players with injury. Okay, one, that is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Show me an NFL team that has a whole bunch of players that have never been injured or only have one injury in their injury history in the NFL. You will not find it. Why? Because the injury rate in the NFL for anybody who's played more than 3 seasons is 100%. And you know what it is in college? I ran the data this morning. Greater than 97% chance that anybody who is leaving college as a junior has had an injury in college playing football. The injury rate for college athletes, not college football players, college athletes as juniors is 90%. So injuries are like, there's going to be an injury history with no matter who you draft. People say, well, they draft these guys with an injury history. That's because you're looking at the 49ers draft picks and you're looking at their injury history, and then you're getting that confirmation of the bias you've already had. You've made an assumption that the 49ers draft injury prone players, so you can look at their draft and see guys with an injury history, and you assume that is why we keep having injuries. Every player that is drafted in the NFL at a 97 plus percent rate will have an injury history. You actually the better metric would be to look at how many games did somebody play in college. The more games they played, that tends to show that they had either minor injuries or fewer injuries. The 2024 draft class, we remarked on this show, we talked about how the 49ers picked a whole bunch of players who'd played a lot of college games, right?
Yeah.
We talked about that. When you look at that draft class, they have almost all of them, except for Jarrett Kingston, who isn't on the active roster with the team, and Tatum Bethune, who's now playing, who hasn't yet got hurt. I hate to say that. Those are the only two players from that draft class that haven't been on the injury report this year and haven't missed games this year. Those are the only two from that draft class. That was actually a draft class that had a lot of players who managed to play a lot of games in college. So again, this idea of you're getting all these injury prone players from college coming in and then they're getting injured again, that doesn't hold up to the metrics right now. Connor Colby was one of the most durable players at Iowa, has come in, and his first week starting, being in the starting lineup, pulled a groin in practice. Like so that is gone. I've seen people say, well, it's because they draft smaller players. They want all this explosiveness, so they draft smaller players. Again, you would expect a higher rate of contact injuries. The 49ers have a 25% higher rate of soft tissue injuries among the amount of injuries they have. So what do I mean by that? Okay, so if the 49ers, for example, have 100 injuries over 3 years, 62 to 68 of those, that's the rate it is, are going to be soft tissue. The average in the NFL is around 52 to 53. So their rate of soft tissue injuries is 25% higher than the rest of the league. Soft tissue injuries are considered, and there's not a consensus on how preventable they are, but every single sports science source will advocate or say that soft tissue injuries are in some way preventable. And the amount of preventability is up for debate. Some will say as low as 30% preventable, as high as 70% preventable. If you take the middle ground, you say half of all soft tissue injuries are preventable. Half.
That's, yeah. There's something
So
that,
when you look at 9 hamstring injuries, you say at least 4 of those are preventable. And you
right.
look at this game and you say, guess what? Imagine we have 4 guys that are dealing with hamstring injuries, that if 4 of those guys were available for this game, is this game different? You say yes.
Right.
Okay. So like all of this is coming around to say that there is a systemic issue. All the data, the review of everything, the review of the theories point to that there is a problem in the 49ers player health department. And for some reason, Kyle Shanahan has a loyalty, much like he did with Jake Moody and like he did with the special teams coordinator he had before. It's like he will have a loyalty to some of these people and say, well, it's not their fault. They're doing a good job. They're working hard. And I get that that's happening, but at some point this becomes unacceptable. For example, the New Orleans Saints, they looked at their injury history. They had a problem when Kellen Moore came in. He looked at everything and he said they had far too many soft tissue injuries. They had fewer than the 49ers last year. And what did he do? He cleaned house. He brought in Ted Rath, who many of us will remember him from his days with the Los Angeles Rams. He was Sean McVay's get-back guy, like the guy that was always grabbing Sean McVay on the sideline and pulling him back. We used to see it on the broadcast. That's Ted Rath. Okay, Ted Rath was one of their assistant strength and conditioning coaches. He then was hired from there to go to the Philadelphia Eagles. He worked in the Philadelphia Eagles strength and conditioning department and training staff. Both of those Rams and Eagles teams were one of the healthiest teams in the league. He was then hired from there to now be the head of the health department with the New Orleans Saints. And the New Orleans Saints have seen a dramatic decrease in their soft tissue injuries. They're one of the healthiest teams in the league right now. Their problem is that they've been in cap hell for a while and just are devoid of talent, but they are very, very healthy. They did something there. They saw that, and Kellen Moore's reasoning was we had far too many soft tissue injuries, and these are preventable. Because guess what? Kellen Moore had come from the Philadelphia Eagles, which have historically been a very, very healthy team for a long time, going even back to Chip Kelly's days. And he brought that in and said, and reviewed it and said, no, we're not just going to sit here and say that this is blind luck. This is bad luck that we are this injured. When you have this many soft tissues, there's an issue with your injury prevention. And they changed the way they went about everything. And they went in to find a solution and somebody who specialized in that. And they have players that are available. I don't care how explosive a player is if they can't get on the field. Because when they're not on the field, they're as explosive as I am. So that's the issue that I have. And this is not just me being emotional. People say that, well, you're just having this emotional fan response. You're just being unreasonable and you're just shouting into the void, trying to blame something. Okay, I ran all of this through AI. And I'm not saying that AI is the end all be all. But here's the prompt I gave AI. I said, using your own logic and reasoning, just reviewing the data on soft tissue causes and prevention and the nature of the 49ers injuries, does it seem to be an injury prevention issue rooted in the player health department approach? That's what I asked. And here's what it went through. It reviewed all the types of injuries that the 49ers have had. It reviewed common causes behind those types of injuries. It then looked at the rate differential. It looked at the reasons that I'm telling you about different things, and what it came to. This is it gave me a really long, detailed response, and here was the final in conclusion. It says, in conclusion, the data logically points to yes, the 49ers' soft tissue woes are a preventable issue stemming from the player health department's suboptimal approaches to load management, injury prevention program implementation, and recovery. Proven strategies could have their rates, but persistence implies gaps in execution or adaptation, warranting an audit or overhaul for sustained health. That's an unbiased reasoning that came to that conclusion, not me. So that's where I'm at. I know that's a long soliloquy on the whole thing, and I'm clapping back a little bit, but I saw some people reposted something I posted on X about the fact that they have that they haven't truly overhauled the strength and training staff, because they didn't. They fired Ray Wright as head of strength and conditioning in 2019. They promoted assistant strength and conditioning coach Dustin Perry to head of strength and conditioning. They hired Ben Peterson from the Philadelphia Flyers to replace Jeff Ferguson as head of player health when they did that. Ben Peterson was there until 2024. In 2023, Ben Peterson was given a promotion to VP of player health, and people assumed, the way it was announced, they assumed that the 49ers cleaned house and restructured everything, because it was 49ers announced new VP of player health and development. That's how they announced that promotion. What they did is, most likely Ben Peterson was trying to vie for more a pay raise, and the only way they could give that to him was giving a promotion from head of player health to vice president of player health. They did the same thing with Dustin Perry. In 2023, they promoted him from head of player health, or head of strength and conditioning, to vice president of strength and conditioning. It was for a pay increase. They promoted them from after their work from 2019 to 2023, not after the 2023 season. This was before. So this was seasons 19, 20, 21, and 22, when the 49ers were a top 10 most injured team every single year, and one of those years had been the most injured team in the NFL. The guy's got a promotion. And then in 2024, Ben Peterson was hired away by the Atlanta Hawks. And to replace him, they promoted Dustin Perry again from VP of Strength and Conditioning to VP of Player Health. And he is there. You can go to his 49ers bio. I posted it on X that he has been with the team since 2017. They have not done a complete overhaul. And I keep seeing this. I've reposted it to reply to at least 200 people. I like copy and paste a post where I explain this because people don't see that. It's like we haven't, it does be, and I'm frustrated not because people have the misconception, but because the reporting of it was done in a way to try and garner attention so that headlines were misleading. It was 49ers announced a restructure to their player health department. 49ers announced new vice president of player health. So 49ers announced new vice president of strength and conditioning. That's how it was announced in the reporting. Nobody said 49ers give promotion to two guys who have been there. Nobody announced it that way because most of us fans do not keep up with who are on the training staff. Like, what are the names of these people?
So we don't need to usually. Yeah. Yeah. It's really, it's becoming too much.
BB Dude 1988. He says, you're making good points, but if it was this clear, don't you think Jed would force change in the health department? At the end of the day, these are his investments not performing. You would think so.
That's why we're frustrated.
But Jed is also very hands off on the day-to-day operations of the NFL. We know that. Like, he's very competitive and he's very much he wants to be around, but he doesn't force his opinion because he's not going to be Jerry Jones. And he's not going to force his opinion on these people. And so, but what we have seen with Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch is that they are very loyal, and that is a good trait in a lot of ways, that they give people room to grow into roles. But when you have undeniable systemic data, and here's the problem is that I hear Kyle Shanahan make the same defenses of these things. Well, I mean, it's just like this freak injury thing that happens every time he's asked by reporters, and the reporters don't press him on these things. They press him about like when a guy breaks his finger and he goes, well, I mean, what are we supposed to do to prevent that? Or when Fred Warner gets rolled up on and he goes, yeah, well, what are we supposed to do? Okay, those are instances, but they don't ask about what was the deal with Ricky Pearsall was supposedly held out of the last day of OTAs out of precaution for a tight hamstring or a slight hamstring issue. Then 6 weeks later, training camp starts, and Ricky Pearsall was 5 days late to start training camp because he was still rehabbing that same hamstring. Nobody asked him about that. That is not normal. It is not normal that the first day of training camp, Jacob Cowing pulls his hamstring and Renardo Green pulls his hamstring running against air. And then a week and a half later, Renardo Green pulls his hamstring. And then Jacob Cowing gets cleared by the training staff to return to practice. That same day, he pulls his hamstring so severely, he has been out ever since. He has been out for 2 months with a hamstring that was a re-aggravation after they cleared him. And George Kittle pulled his hamstring almost 13 days later, and it was a grade 3 hamstring pull, and George Kittle has already returned. How bad was Jacob Cowing's hamstring for it to be this severe when it happened the day he was cleared by the training? I'm not hearing the reporters ask about this. So I'm not asking about the Fred Warner injury. I'm not asking about Kalia Davis breaking his hand. Those are understandable. I can live with those. Losing Jake Brendel and Bryce Huff in the same game, both to hamstring pulls, that makes me wonder something. After you've already had a long history, then you also have Luke Gifford get a hamstring pull. You already have Yetur Gross-Matos with a hamstring pull. George Kittle had just come back from one. A grade 3. Something's not right. Like, So I think there is a question that says, okay, what's going on here? And because Kyle Shanahan will often say, well, I'm not a doctor. I don't know about this stuff. I'm trusting the experts I have. Your experts cannot be right at this point.
And they can't be
The
trusted.
change has to happen. You have been the number one most injured team going on 2 years in a row with the same guy as player ahead of player in health. There is something wrong. And that is where we're at right now. You have run out of NFL bodies. You can't keep throwing the players
Practice
into
squad.
this meat
Yeah.
grinder and expect to continue to perform at a high level. Like this is just becoming beyond maddening at this point. And that is where I get frustrated. I'm not calling for him to do it right now in the middle of the season. It's going to be you just have to kind of hope that players do something to take this upon themselves. Also understand the players do recognize this. The 49ers training staff was graded as by player surveys 25th in the league. The only two grades the 49ers got that were lower than a B plus when it was player surveys was the training room and the training staff. Both got B minus grades from the players. Lowest grades by a wide margin of any category the 49ers players graded the 49ers organization. The players know it's a problem there.
Yeah. What does that tell you? Hopefully at the end of the year they can make the changes. Another super chat regarding what we're talking about for sure. John Kimball says, please continue evangelizing the player health issues. If all you do is bring awareness to that, you will have served the Niner fan base well. And yeah, this channel is not necessarily just about ranting, but if you really listen to what Johnny was saying, he had about 19 facts that were intertwined in all this and real data and unbiased things happening here. It's not just a rant to say that he's in his feelings. So I completely
And
mimic
I
everything that
well,
you're
I do get
saying.
frustrated. Yes, I get it. I get frustrated and I get kind of fired up about it because I'm frustrated. And I'm not just frustrated out of blind frustration. It's like because I started saying in like 2021, 2022, like something's wrong in the player health department. People would push back and they say, but they already cleaned house. They did this stuff. And I go, and I did. I backed up and I was like, okay, maybe I'm getting emotional. And so I've been following the data on this. And when you see it, it's like, it's not just a thing of like, I'm I'm being just crazy about this. The data, and I hear what people are saying, and I go, okay, well, because I want to find out the issue because I want it to be corrected. It's the same approach I take with the film. I'm going to say it's the same approach I take with almost anything I do in my life. I want to find the root cause. I want to let's analyze this, figure out what's going on, get down to the base of the problem. No, like it's like when somebody's systemically sick and you say, well, they're around other sick people, and you go, yeah, but when somebody is sick more often than others, there's an underlying issue either with their immune system or their nutrition. Like there's something else going on. You need to dive into it and figure out what it is. The 49ers have been more sick than every other team. We got to figure out what those underlying issues are. And so I've gone through the list of things. People will say, well, this is one theory. I'll look at it. I looked at player age. I went through a systemic review of the 49ers roster age ranking in the league and their ranking in injury rates. And there was a little bit of correlation. Like it would account for some of it, but it wasn't strong enough to point to the 49ers being this kind of outlier every single year. Like, because some years we got older and we had a lower injury rate. And then another year we got younger and we had a higher injury rate. And then another year we got older and then we had a much higher injury rate. Like it wasn't consistent. It was kind of like one of those graphs that goes down and up, and it kind of points in a slightly general direction, but it wasn't anything definitive to say this is why because the 49ers roster is old. They have one of the oldest rosters. If you actually look at their roster right now, it's mostly the young players who've been getting hurt this year. Fred Warner and Nick Bosa being the exception, but you look at all the other players and it's mostly guys who are 25 and under who've been getting hurt. So this isn't a roster age problem. That's not a cumulative wear and tear problem. People say it's the long seasons, and I pointed about the roster turnover. I also point to in 2017 they were coming off a year where they didn't go to the playoffs. 2018, same thing. 2019, same thing. These were all years where they were coming off of a year. I know 2019 they went to Super Bowl, but they were coming off of a year. The previous year they did not go to the Super Bowl. They were top 10 injured in all those years. 2021 they didn't. They were coming off a year they didn't go to the playoffs. They were the most injured team, or one of the most injured teams that year. This year, we're coming off a year where we didn't go to the playoffs, and we're the most injured team in the NFL. You've had 5 seasons during this stretch where you weren't coming off of a long season, and you were still top 10 most injured. It's not a long season thing.
Yeah.
And so Cornelius also came in with a super chat. He said, Niners injuries are systemic. This is literally 1 out of 32. It 100% is. The likely, and again, people say, well, it's freak injuries. This happened. And they will always point to the 1 or 2 or 3 anecdotal examples. The 49ers have had 25 players be injured this year. Okay. I'm not talking about the 2 or 3 or 4 anecdotals. I'm talking about the 20 that aren't the anecdotal freak injuries. Because I ran the freak injuries through. I ran the data on that. What is the likelihood by random chance? Because if freak injuries are a thing, well, then that you would expect that to be randomly distributed around the league, right? But that would be something that, like Fred Warner's ankle. Each team should have one of those within, like 1 or 2 of those within a 9-year period. We just saw the Giants have that yesterday with Cam Scatterbo. Okay. The Dolphins had that with Tyreek Hill. Like those sorts of injuries do happen, and they do happen to each team, and it's random each year. So you would expect that kind of dispersion, right? The likelihood of the kind of data cluster that the 49ers seen it for injuries of being top 10 among a 32 team league in 8 out of 9 years, the likelihood of it being the result of freak injuries is 1 in 1,692. That's the likelihood of that. The NFL, for this to be by pure chance, would have to play, what is that? Around 14,000 years for this to happen. And it be freak injuries. I mean, just to put it in perspective.
Makes
like to have a 9-year data set like this, to be random chance, the league would have to play for 14,000 years. Like that's a statistical impossibility.
Yeah.
It's not by luck. Like this isn't bad injury luck. There is an underlying cause. So like I've run the data on this, and it just points to a definitive, undeniable, one-way conclusion. There's a problem with how either it might not be the training staff. It could be the playing surface, the practice surface. But as far as we know, the 49ers have tried to invest a lot into making sure that their playing surfaces are one of the best in the NFL. But it's either something with the playing surfaces that's causing micro tears that are leading to injury, or it's a problem in the recovery, or it's a problem in the injury prevention. It could be all 3. But somewhere in that is where the problem is. All the other externals can be mostly eliminated.
So it's funny. It's like, oh, are we gonna talk about the game? We did. There's nothing else to say. I want to see some of the film. I will request you, Johnny, to look at that play, the 50-yard catch. I say Bethune. It looked like he was going to guard to go get the running back, and then he decided he was kind of gonna go get the quarterback. That's what the naked eye tells me, but I'm really curious. Other than that, like, yeah, a few plays to highlight. The George Kittle, that's complete luck. It was good coverage. He caught a touchdown on tight ends day. Hallelujah. But that was complete luck. That was really good defense. I thought Will Anderson played his rear end off. I mean, I don't know what else there is to talk about the game when we don't have guys who can play the way that we know that 49ers can play. It's just the way it
We're
is.
not a pressure heavy team. We don't practice it a lot. We run
Yeah.
some situational third down, but when you can't rush the pass with 4 guys, you got to start bringing pressure. And it's kind of like the 49ers coming out and saying we're going to play against this Houston defense, and we're going to throw the ball 40 times. That's a losing proposition, and it was. It's a losing proposition for your offense. If their defense comes out and says we're going to now, be a Wink Martindale and Brian Flores defense that's going to be bringing all these crazy pressures all the time, that's not how you built your defense. And I'm sorry, no, the 49ers should not have planned for this, because no coach should be expected to install a defense and a system where they expect to lose half their players through the year. Like, and I'm meaning backups and starters. There's no roster construction and no scheme that overcomes that. At some point, you are going to be unable to compete against the better teams, and that's what we saw. And look, the Texans were coming off a game where they got embarrassed, and they were ready to go wash that taste out of their mouth, and they came into a 49ers team that was really banged up, and it turned sideways on them quick. And that can happen. I'm not saying it's all injuries, but it was a huge part of it. A huge part of it to look at that game and say that, well, yeah, they should have been getting off the field more on third down when Robert Beal and Trevis Gibson are your pass rushers. I'm sorry, I can't be on board with that. Like that's not a winning formula from here, and it's hard to see it because the 49ers don't have a bye week for over a month.
I know,
so
that
they're
we
not.
have a late bye. Everyone in our division had the bye, and then we get. I don't know how that happens, how that works, but I get you don't want the whole division to have a bye.
I mean, we can't go a week without 2 and 3 injuries, and so if that can happen, then this season starts becoming a lot more positive. But right now, it's really hard when you can't go a week without losing 2 guys.
We
So,
definitely
I mean,
did
it is
talk
what it is.
about we definitely did talk about injuries after the last game. Everyone's like, "Well, how come we don't talk about injuries when we're winning?" Yeah, we definitely we definitely are frustrated every single week about injuries. I will say
I just
that.
haven't gotten into it to this extent because the fact is I have gotten a lot more pushback for I've been saying this for a long time, that the 49ers have, going back to week 1. I was doing this in training camp, talking about that there is a problem in the player health department for the 49ers to be this injured this often. This is not just blind perception. So the reason I've been going after it more is because I'm seeing an incredible amount of pushback against me for saying these things. I'm seeing it against people who have listened to me and are sharing some of the same information. They're getting pushback on this. Strong pushback. And here's what I get. How dare you question Kyle Shanahan in this front office? They've won so much. And I'm like, you guys know me.
You love Kyle Shanahan.
That doesn't fly
Yeah,
with me. I love Kyle Shanahan. I think
yeah.
he's one of the greatest coaches we've ever had. I think he's one of the best coaches in the league. I think he's in the top 3 in the NFL right now. My frustration comes that I keep seeing a coach that I think is brilliant cannot keep his players on the field because he's being let down by somebody in his staff who he's loyal to. That's what I see is going. If I'll just put it to you to everybody watching. Imagine you have a landscaping company and you're competing in your town with 31 other landscaping companies. And you consistently lose contracts because you can't get out there and service their properties because your equipment is broke down. That's what's going on. And this has been going on for 8 of 9 years that you have that.
And
You
you're like,
have
"What
a
is wrong
guy
with our lawnmowers?" Yeah.
you have a guy who is your lead mechanic. And he's been there with you in some way as a mechanic for 9 years. And you've tried different brands. You've tried new equipment, you've tried old equipment. And it's happening, and every year this happens. And you keep losing contracts because you can't get your equipment out into the field.
And it's leaking oil every time. There you go for hamstring. There you go.
Well, I mean, it would be this similar issues. You keep seeing same recurring issues that are happening. Your tension belts are wearing out. Your mower blade belts are wearing out. I used to be a foreman for a landscaping company. After a certain time, if you were consistently ranking 32 out of 32 in your equipment being usable, you would end up. How many of you would sit there and not look at your lead mechanic and say, "I'm sorry, dude, you got we got to do something different here." This is unacceptable.
Yeah.
Everyone in here, if you were in that position, you would end up, even if you didn't want to, you would move on from that person and you would try and bring in a better mechanic.
That's a great
That's what's
example.
happening with the
That's
49ers.
Yep.
If the 49ers were the 32nd ranked offensive line for in 8 out of 9 years, everyone would be calling for Chris Forster's head. The 49ers have been ranked middle of the pack and people have been calling for Chris Forster's head.
Right.
If the 49ers had were 32nd in sacks in 8 out of 9 years, you would be calling for Chris Kasurik's head. Why does our player health department get any sort of pass? If they're the purpose of their title is player health and you are last, you have the least healthy team, how do you justify that person still being there? I'm not a mean and vindictive person. Adam knows this. I'm not somebody who sits here and wishes that people would lose their jobs and their livelihoods. I don't wish for that. But the fact is this is a very competitive league, the NFL. There's only 32 teams. There's only 32 people that are paid at the point of being the head in the positions that they are. There comes incredible accountability with that. You do not just say, people will say that will want to dump players and get players fired in an instant when they drop a pass. Why do we not have the same sort of level of scrutiny in this area? That's my question.
So there's someone that I am starting to side with a tiny bit. Dr. J Ove, who's like, all right, we're talking in circles, that's enough.
Okay.
Here's one question.
I get
Here's one question that he asked that I actually am curious. Would like to understand if it was a mistake to rush with 5 so often. And again, the reason we're talking about injuries so much is
It's because you
yeah,
couldn't get home with 4.
it was a mistake because we don't do it a lot because we usually have 4 guys that can get it done, but they're injured. That's why we keep talking about injuries. It's like,
You're down Nick
everything we
Bosa, you're
did was a
down Bryce
mistake.
Huff, you're down Yetur
Everything
Gross-Matos, you
Was it a
lost Sam
mistake to run
O.
this? Was it a mistake to run that? Was it a mistake to run that screen? Well, yeah, because the offensive linemen that we have cannot block the way that our normal blockers that Ben Barch would block.
Well,
So
look,
was it a mistake to run a screen to McCaffrey where he got a
well,
2-yard loss?
well,
Yeah, that was a mistake. Like,
a
what are we
perfect
saying?
example of that. The 49ers second drive. I saw it happen live on the broadcast. Didn't even see it on film. That there was a miscommunication there from Matt Hennessy somewhere along the line. He was expecting Dominic Puni to pick up the nose tackle. Puni was expecting him to pick up the nose tackle. Hennessy slid left. Puni's expecting him to slide right. They left the defensive tackle unblocked. The nose tackle right over the center was unblocked because you have a backup center. Everybody's bags on Jake Brendel, and I'm not the biggest Jake Brendel fan, but I've also argued that you're going to see more mental mistakes along the offensive line with him going down because there's going to be an adjustment process. And what ended up happening, okay, here's how bad they blew his block. He thought it was a screen. He stopped. He stopped.
Wait a minute.
He did.
Yeah,
it was one of those because nobody blocked him. They're usually taught that's not supposed to happen. So be alert that something else is going on.
Great point.
He takes 2 steps and he looks to either side looking for a screen as Mac Jones is standing there trying to throw a pass while he's staring at an unblocked nose tackle. And then the guy rushes him and he has to get rid of it. And it's an incomplete pass. That happened on second down on the second drive of the game. We ended up going 3 and out, punting the ball away.
And we want to talk about the game. What are we going to talk about?
Well, they become cumulative issues. Like when you have position after position after position after position, and you're seeing backups make mistakes, that's when I do say, yes, there's a problem here, and it all ties back to this. I'm not saying that if you have Jake Brendel in there, you win the game. I'm not saying if you have Yetur Gross-Matos in there to win the game. I'm not saying if you have D Winters play the whole game, you win the game. I'm saying that if you have the cumulative effect of all of those, it becomes really, really, really hard to beat a talented team.
Yeah.
That's my point.
And so, a couple more super chats. What we're talking about.
A couple more super chats in here. BB Dude 1988. Injuries are the season story. Can't talk about the whys and hows when there aren't players available to execute the whys and the hows. Exactly. That's my frustration.
and
Cornelius says,
Cornelius,
"Can you send this episode to the 49ers? Like,
like,
please."
please. Yeah, I'm like,
Here's what I want. Here's what I want. Why? Well, actually, I have a theory on why. Why more of the reporters aren't actually hammering this issue,
well, they
and I'll
can't.
tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because, well,
Lombardi,
my
those guys
my
get
theory is
repaid.
no, my theory is that training staffs are notorious for being sources.
Yeah,
I know people who have sources that are on the training staff. And so training staffs are notorious for being sources for people. You
yeah,
get injury sources. How else do you all think that Ian Rappaport gets instant updates
right.
on injuries
Of course, because
while
he's
teams are on the
texting.
sideline? Because
Yeah.
he's texting somebody on the training staff and saying, "Hey, what's going on with this guy?"
Yeah, of course. So Zelda4949, I've been thinking about this man the whole show. But Johnny's talking a million miles an hour a minute. Wonder if Grant knows about this because he likes to talk that ish. I wonder about that too because out of all of the reporters that we kind of like to poke at, we do that sometimes with that person. And so I wonder, like, he seems like a guy that just doesn't care and that has a big enough following that, hey,
No,
he works for Sports
look,
Illustrated and
I can tell you that almost certainly that would be one reason that he's not going to press it. I just, again, my theory, just that's not direct knowledge of the situation, but by reading the tea leaves around him, I'm just I want to be careful. I don't want to accuse somebody of something that's not true, but
yeah,
my guess would be that it would be very much that kind of a situation, and I think it's that situation for a lot of the guys, honestly. It's either that or they're worried about losing access. Look, the 49ers media
right.
department is very strict on what they can and can't,
Yeah.
what they tell reporters they
Lombardi,
can and can't share. Well, I'm not even Lombardi. I've talked to a couple of them, and they've told me, like, they will interview players and they'll be told immediately after by the 49ers media, you can only use 30 seconds of that, or you can only use these questions.
yeah.
Like, that
Yeah,
happens.
and I get it.
And
To a certain
and
degree, you truly do
to a certain
understand.
degree, it's true, but I guess my frustration, and again, it comes to in the press conferences, like, somebody's gotta press this issue and say, "Kyle, why is your team 25% high have a 25% higher rate than league average of soft
Yeah,
tissue injuries?"
but the person that does that then is gonna get maybe a stern talking to by the
So?
brass.
So you do not answer to the 49ers, you answer to your
But if they don't let you back in the
consumers,
building but if they don't let you back in to ask the questions, if they say you're not welcome next time,
then you
then what do
then
you
you scream from the rooftops that that's what happened.
well, that's not I'm just saying in the way big business works,
I No,
that
I
what
get
I'm
it, I
saying is
get it.
that's what you're worried about. What I'm saying is if you're a reporter that you've done that math in your head, you've calculated and you're like, "You know what? It's not worth it."
Yeah, but
Like,
here's the thing, if it was found out that the 49ers banned a reporter from the press conferences because he dared ask legitimate questions about the injury situation and status of the injuries, what do you think the result would be among the 49ers fan base? The ones who pay all of their salaries. We are all the ones who pay all their salaries by buying their gear, by going to the games, by watching the games on TV.
right, right.
That, like, I mean, it would not be a good result. So again, I just personally think that some of these guys are protecting some of their own sources. They don't want to put their own sources in jeopardy, or make it seem like, because if you come in there and you say, "What, why is this department performing so poorly under you?" and you have a source inside that department, and
Yeah,
and those
and
those
then you
people,
ask them
next
for,
time you say, "Hey, what's
"Hey,"
going on with this guy's injury?"
you're
They're
gonna
going to
get
say,
ghosted.
"Screw off."
Yeah,
They're
you're
going to say,
gonna
"Screw off.
yeah,
You're
exactly.
you're calling for my job. You're trying to influence me losing my job. I'm not. You're going to lose them as a source." And so that's what I think. That's just my
No,
opinion. Anyways,
it's a great point. I'm interested, because I've hit the notification bell, I will be sure to see your video when it comes out. Make sure you are too, because I do wanna see certain things like, Bethune. I want you to tell me in the video, yes, I want you to use my name. Yes, Adam, this was Bethune. You are right. He was with the running back, and then he decided he's going to do his own thing, and it cost us 50 yards. That's what I want, because I think that's what happened, but I don't know, and I'll never claim to know as much.
No,
You
I saw it from the broadcast. That's exactly what happened.
Okay, thank you very much. So, but I want to see, like, I want to see those whys and hows of the people that did happen to be on the field, even though 20% of them are not NFL players. Um, that's what I want to see. That will be us talking about the game. It'll be your video, because there's nothing to do here. We've already been over an hour and 15 minutes, and there's not much else to say. Like, oh, they had more first downs than us. I talked about time of possession, and I don't know what else to say. I'm done. Like, I, you know,
Well, I got it out there, and as you guys know, like I try and be data based. I try and be fact based. This
yeah,
isn't me just trying to rant. I'm not one of the rant guys. I'm not. Some people, that's the lane they've wanted to be in, and I don't go down that route for just personal reasons. I don't like to be that way. This wasn't just a rant out of just being there. It's a accumulation of feeling like people are not wanting to listen to the facts,
yeah.
and that there's been an incredible amount of misunderstanding about the situation, and I'm dispelling the common narratives that are there. That's what I'm hoping everybody got has come away from this with. I don't want people to come away with it of like, Johnny's just rehashing the same thing. We get it, dude. Like, I wouldn't feel like I have to keep saying it if I wasn't constantly seeing people still push back on this. And so that's why I hammer on it, is because I'm trying to provide accurate information about everything. That's
So,
what I do with the whys and hows. So yeah,
so
I just
Johnny,
hope that that's what the takeaway is.
I would think of and ask AI, come up with creative ways to post, and then Faithful in the chat, it's on you. Some of this, retweet it, because even Jim Cushman has a good idea. Like, hey, if we can catch Florio's attention with it, it'll get more attention or something. Like, make if you can get one of these tweets to go viral,
Well,
then
I mean, there is some of it, like, I mean, and some of it has happened. Like, if I go to, I posted last night, I posted the bio of Dustin Perry, and I put in there in a quote that says, "Fortiners have restructured their health and staff several times." No, they haven't. Well, that's gotten 60,000 views. Um, Like,
hey,
I
let's
mean,
keep
I've
retweeting
tried to
it.
do that. Um, I had a post that, because I quoted the one where I talked about the data on it being random luck, 1 in 1,692. I reposted that last night, said there, just a reminder of how likely the 49ers injury history being a bunch of bad luck injuries. Bad luck doesn't cluster like this anywhere ever. It's got 12,000 views. I posted the idea of, if the 49ers had the 32nd ranked goal line, the 32nd ranked pass rush, you'd be calling for those coaches' heads. That's gotten 28,000 views. I've tried to post this stuff, and I'm not doing it for engagement. Somebody accused me of trying to do that for engagement last night. I'm like, this isn't for engagement. It's because I'm trying to
Raise
inform the
awareness,
base,
yeah,
because
and get
I'm still seeing every time I post one of these, somebody, I have 5 or 6 or 7 responses that say they've already cleaned house 2 or 3 times in that time.
right.
And then I'll show, then it's the same sort of rabbit trail. Well, no, they haven't. Well, I think it's because of this that they're injured. And it's like, you have to go one by one with people on this. And so no, this is very widespread. These are very widespread misconceptions about what's going on in the injury department. So I,
Yeah, let
maybe I'm being too plugged in with that, and I'm not, seeing
no,
the
this is
the
big.
forest for the trees.
No, I'm on your side. This is big. This was a different kind of show, but sometimes it needs to happen. I will tell you one thing. To get one of your weekly dosages of Sports Idiot Nation. Today's episode, we talk about Brian Kelly getting fired, the NBA getting started. Definitely not all this injury stuff. Some football talk. So those of you that are subscribed to Sports Idiot Nation, make sure you check out today's episode that was just out a couple hours ago. That was a fun one with Ti. as he still laughs and cries over his Titans, who we play, and oh god, if we lose to them, I'll never hear the end of it. So again, be sure to hit the notification bell. Be sure to show the channel. This definitely was a weird one, I will admit, but it needed to be done. And take your phone, show the channel to other Niner fans, especially on at least the video breakdowns. I'm not one to push the podcast because it's me saying for me, like, oh, look at me. I'm talking about the videos that Johnny puts out because he put so much work into it, and they're so good with the X's and O's and the Y's and the hows and all that. Why the X is zig and the O zag. So Zelda4949, you are very welcome. He says thanks for the show, guys. Yeah, every once in a while we do gotta just break it down like this. So but yeah, thanks, Johnny, for all that you do. Keep it going.
Yeah, and as always, stay safe.
Stay healthy.
Stay healthy, please.
Yes.
And
And
go Niners.
go Niners.